here we are to interview you about our cross-culture management assignment. So I am Syafiqah.
My name is Adriana.
My name is Athirah.
My name is Hakimah.
The first question that I want to ask is, how many international assignments do you have when you come here?
Great. First and foremost, thank you for coming to visit me. It's really an honor to have you here in our offices in Kuala Lumpur, and I'm very supportive of this project. As you mentioned, I'm Manuel Sanchez, and I lead the office here for the U.S. Greens Council. This is my first official international assignment. So I've had a global role before, but never was I posted abroad. So my family and I, we arrived into Malaysia about 3.5 years ago. So we've been here for a little over 3.5 years now, and I'm very fortunate to call Malaysia now our home. We've been very lucky to live here.
So the next one is, how do you prepare for an international assignment?
Great question. For a big international assignment, you could do the best you can to prepare, right? But you're never 100% prepared until you land on the ground. At least for me, how I prepared by educating myself, understanding not only my role, but also understanding, life in a different country, cultural norms, religion, all the standard aspects. I think that's a big component of preparing. That's the first thing everyone does. But a lot of people forget to make sure they leave everything in order in their current posting or in their home, right? Before you leave, it's important that you close your bank accounts, you do what you have to do before you travel overseas. In my case, I was coming all the way from the US, which is a 36-hour plane ride, actually 3 plane rides to get here.
Quite far.
It's quite far, right? So it's not easy to just jump on a Grab and get back home. No, so I had to make sure that all my stuff, all my bills and my life sort of was in order before I departed to my new post.
So, how was the first few days like when you first arrived in Malaysia?
It's hot. It's really hot. You land in a place you don't know anybody. I didn't have any friends or family here, so you start walking around. And you realize that's a very bad idea, to walk around in the middle of the day in Malaysia. So you quickly try to find cover, but it was fun. You just have to explore the city. You start getting to know more of the neighborhoods just by walking around and finding things to eat, and you eventually find where all the malls are. And so you just move around that way. So it was, I was lost. I was lost and hot. I think that'd be a way to describe it.
Were days that surprised you about the way people talk or work?
Yeah. So Malaysia's a little, slower pace than especially New York. New York was very fast. Everybody was in a hurry. I think here in Malaysia, in a positive way, things are just a little bit slowed down. So but here it's also prettier, right? The jungle's here, the ocean's here, so people take more time just to relax and enjoy, the warm weather and the nature around you.
Okay.
So, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So the first question for me today is, what was your biggest about the culture in Malaysia?
It was actually it was a surprise that the Malaysian culture was pretty similar to some parts of the United States. So if you go to Louisiana, down in the bottom half, like New Orleans, Louisiana in the United States, the food is very similar. The spicy food, the music, and there's that kind of that water, seafood kind of culture is very similar to here in Malaysia. So it was kind of very surprising that you could be all the way over here in Malaysia, but have a very similar culture to some parts of the U.S.
Yeah. So when you first arrived in Malaysia, do you have someone to explain about the local culture here? Like, do the company provide you with a guide, or do you have anyone that you use here?
So we were provided with a real estate agent to help you find a house, and so that was my first experience with you know, trekking through Malaysia to find just a house, and you learn a lot about, you know, Malaysia just by doing that. Then of course I had my colleagues here who were really the first people who were telling me about things in Malaysia, would take me around, show me things. So I really relied on your colleagues as well as your real estate agent to figure out what's going on.
So this question might make you feel a bit weird, but how do you think Malaysian sees you?
Sees me.
Yeah. Like, how do you think they think of you?
Yeah, so I think as a foreigner, always. But I would say Malaysians are nicer about accepting foreigners than other countries. So in other countries, you really are, you know, you go to these places, locals go here, and it's not as easy to assimilate and mix. I feel like Malaysia is a lot easier. People are more welcoming. Saya boleh cakap bahasa sikit-sikit, right? And so, yeah, so saya cuba bahasa, tapi tak bagus. So just me trying. I think in Malaysia they accept it. If I try in some other countries, they kind of make fun of you.
How do you describe your relationship with your coworkers? Do you hang out with them sometimes, or is it just purely professional?
Both. You know, it's a small office, so we all have to get along because we spend a lot of time together. So you know, I would say they're an extension of my family here, and you know, I can rely on them because my real family is so far away. They're around the world, and you know, 12 hours difference. So if any problems or any questions or concerns that I have, I would go to my colleagues here first.
Alright. How would you describe your living situation, please? Do you live in a compound of expatriates, or live in a neighborhood composed primarily of expatriates, or live in a neighborhood composed primarily of host country nationals?
I would say it's a mix. So I live in an apartment building, and it's quite a big apartment building. And there's people, there are people from Malaysia. You have Malaysian nationals that live there, and then you have expats. There's a lot of people from Korea. There's people from Japan. There's also people from South Asia, like India, and there are local Malaysians as well that live in our community.
Alright. How many do you supervise? What was that like?
How many do I supervise? So in terms of my office dynamic here. So our Southeast Asia office, we are a total of 12 people. And it's a mixture of full-time employees, consultants, and part-time consultants. So under my jurisdiction today are 11 people. Some here in the office and some in other countries. As far as Australia, I have a consultant in Australia today. I have a consultant in Indonesia. I have a consultant in Singapore, in Vietnam. I also have.
Alright. Do you feel you change as a result of working abroad? If so, how?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I feel like I've changed. Traveling to a country is one thing. Living abroad is another, right? You don't really discover the essence of another country just by visiting it, or another culture just by visiting it on a short while. I think it's very different. It's a different experience when you relocate your whole family to a new country. So I certainly have changed. I think living in Malaysia has expanded my horizons. It has exposed me to things that I never knew existed. Like the case of durian. I've never heard about durian until I moved to Malaysia, and now I know all about durian. I know about the different varieties of durian. I know that the Thai durian isn't that great, so I know a little bit more now. In addition to food, but also just cultural experience, background, religion, all these different things that come along with moving to a new country, I think helps mold you. I wouldn't necessarily say it's changed me to become a different person, but it's exposed me to more than I was exposed to before.
Alright. Do you get to use the skills you acquired abroad?
Certainly. So I went to school for international business, as I mentioned. That was a career that I chose, that I really wanted to do, and one of the big drivers of why I'm here, because I wanted to be abroad. I went to school for this, so why not? Why not take up the challenge? So I am using the skills that I learned prior here in my current role.
So, can you identify the similarities and differences in managing cross-culture?
Yeah, I think you have to acknowledge and understand that not everybody thinks and feels the same way you do, but doesn't mean it's any less right or wrong. So I think if you're culturally sensitive, both ways, it allows the working environment to be a lot better and allow you to accomplish more things. People from a different background will approach situations differently from you, but that adds to the team because they're thinking of stuff that you won't think of, and you're thinking of stuff that they won't think of. So if you embrace it and just be sensitive, your team dynamic can be a lot more productive.
So the next questions. If you were to select people to work abroad, what are the characteristics will you look for?
Yeah, they have to be smart, right? You have to pick up things quickly. You have to be able to pick up on a culture. You have to pick up on, geography. So you have to be smart. You have to be ambitious, right? You have to be adventurous. You have to be able to leave home and be away from your family and things like that. So you have to be, strong-willed, I would say, but also curious. You have to want to go out and explore and meet new people and eat new things and explore new businesses.
Okay. What advice would you give to a friend who was on his or her way to a foreign assignment?
Again, I would say try everything at least once and reform your opinions once you're there. Kind of get rid of your everything you thought of, all your preconceptions before. Just kind of throw them out the window and create new thoughts once you're here.
Okay. What advice would you give to a person ending a foreign assignment about returning home?
Sorry. Just take back what you learned and bring some of that back to your home country.
What advice would you have for human resource departments about handling expatriates?
It's important to allow them little things that remind them of home, or little things that allow them to touch home, whether that's ability to call home or go home, every once in a while. I think those things are important.
I think that's all for today.
Thank you for sharing your experience and joining us.
And also spending time for us, even though I don't believe you.
Absolutely. No, it's my pleasure. I hope this is beneficial to you and the program.